Hey, I'm Battalion Chief Bob Grand, and we're going to go over today over a wildland call that I was on the Butte the other day. It was kind of an interesting call. It came in as a female with a gun on the Butte, and she was waving it around, and then there was a fire on the Butte, and they said that she lit the Butte on fire. So it turns out she did have a gun, but the gun was like a plastic airsoft gun, and she had a butane torch, and she torched right above the columns. She was standing at the top of the columns, and she kind of just torched a swath along the columns, and with the heat and temperature and everything the way it was, the fire in the grass fire in the area blew up pretty quickly. I got some of the oak trees on top of it burning and a few different things like that. So when we were initially called to the call, dispatch didn't request us to stage while PD took care of the scene. So it was actually, I thought it was great that Travis Allen on engine 1 said that he was going to level 1, at the base of the Butte until PD had taken control of the situation. I got on the radio and requested that everybody level 1 and nobody go into the scene until we were able to get it cleared. I met up with police. They actually had the female in custody, and then so we were able to clear and get up to the top of the Butte. I staged right at I wouldn't say staged. I parked right at the base of the columns so I could get kind of a view of the actual fire kind of climbing up, and it looked like it was pretty hot, running pretty good. I was speculating it was a half acre at the time. I think that the fire maybe ended up being a total of 1 acre. Showing up to it, the challenging thing that I kind of was trying to think about is, I've got a Butte, in Eugene, and trying to figure out how am I going to deploy resources around it. Engine 1 pulled right up into the same location that I was at. They deployed their GP packs and started working up the Butte to get kind of a spot where they can start hooking the fire. And they did a really good job with that whole situation. They ended up needing a couple of GP packs and more, hose and stuff like that, so they could kind of get around it. We ended up bringing in a tender, which wasn't dispatched on the initial assignment, but I requested a tender, got them there, and had them set up their folded tank and water supply operation right at engine 1. I ended up making engine 1 the alpha division because as more resources came in, I was able to shift them around to the backside of the Butte and take the road that kind of gets you up to the flagpole area. They got up there, and I believe that was engine 13 and 15 that ended up on top of that and taking care of the backside. I made them the Echo division, just with that kind of wildland concept where you don't make an Alpha and the next division Bravo. You want to leave some space in between it just in case you end up having to put more divisions in. In my brain, I was thinking that there was a bigger distance than what there actually was burning on top of the Butte. So I thought there would be more distance between them. It ended up being kind of a shorter area, and one of the roads kind of wrapped around where they could get down about 15 to 20 feet off the main road and kind of hook into the fire themselves. So there was Alpha Division and Echo Division kind of running that, and everything went really good with that. There was just a few challenges, coordinating resources and getting water to the top. And so we ended up using the additional, engineer that we had, just driving and bringing water up to the top for the guys up on top of the Butte. And one of the other cool things that really happened was Brush 13 happened to be coming back into town from conflagration. They were listening to the radio, they heard it, and they asked us if, that they could support us on the call. So we stuck them into the call too, and then made them part of the Echo Division. So we had engine 13, brush 13, and engine 15 up there. I did request C2 to respond also, just because I didn't really quite know what I had and wasn't sure if it was going to roll over the backside of the Butte and how long we were going to be there. So C2 arrived, I had him take over, Battalion 2, arrived, and he took over the Echo Division, and I kind of just worked on the Alpha side as command. I kept engine 1 as Alpha Division while I was overall command on it. There's with the columns in that Butte area, there's some definite considerations that you have to kind of think about. The steepness on that thing, climbing up the face of it, there was a challenge there, and we were really close to the columns, and we didn't have anybody, didn't have the ability to tie off or anything like that, so the crews were trying to stay back from the sides of it, but it kind of got down in one of the areas where they could just basically lob water to it and, kind of hope that it goes out, because we weren't really going to be able to overhaul it.
But it was, you know, a little bit scary in there in that aspect, because if you did take a spill off that hillside, you know, you're going to fall 30 or 40 feet down to the bottom of the columns. And, you know, on the top side, it actually made more sense, I think, to be able to access it from the top and kind of work your way down, just so that way you could kind of walk down the hill versus climb the hill. And with it being a paved road up there, you got a good anchor point to be able to anchor off of and kind of get in and out of the whole Butte area pretty quickly. So we did have, also we had 10-7 come in and shut down the Butte and get rid of all the people that were around it, just in case, you know, the fire kind of got bigger and a little bit more out of control. But, you know, we burn the Butte probably, I think every season there's some sort of a fire on it. This one just kind of was a little bit bigger than we usually would typically have up there, I think, just due to the weather and everything that we're kind of handling. So, and I think probably the last kind of consideration is anytime you're working up in the kind of the hills like the Butte and things like that, is poison oak's probably the next biggest thing that, you know, I was trying to let the crews know, like, you're probably going to need to wash up and everything afterwards with the oak and ivy cleaner that we have in stations, because the poison oak can be horrible in that area. But yeah, so that was pretty much it with that fire up on the Butte. Everything went pretty smooth. One cool thing that we actually ended up using was the police drone. I didn't have a very good perspective. I was sitting there on an iPad trying to look at, you know, the overall top of the Butte on an iPad with Google Map, and then one of the police with the drone set up comes walking up and he says, "Hey, I got my drone up in the air. I was just in the area." He's like, "Do you want to get a visual of what's going on top?" And he was able to switch it from the IR back to just the regular view, so I could kind of get an idea of where the fire's edge was burning. And once I saw that, it really helped bring everything into perspective and helped me realize the area that I was dealing with was a little bit smaller than I actually thought it was. So in my brain, I made it up to be a lot bigger location than what it is. And so that's one of the things that I could recommend if you're ever on a call and you need a drone or you're trying to get a better visual on something, is just to, you know, potentially call Hazmat and see if we can get them down to do kind of aerial with drone, or ask dispatch for 10-7 to see if somebody has one of their drone operators. And I think after talking to the police about that, they said they have 7 drone operators, and so typically one is almost always on shift. So if we can't get 9 because they're out or they're attached to the call, then you know, I think that, you know, 10-7 would be another good option for that. So that was my interesting call dealing with that up on the Butte.